Hello everyone, we're just going to go through the tutorial that I made for our class regarding how to make a layer composite with a few tips and tricks. And we're going to do this in 5 easy steps using the files that I have provided for you guys on Google Classroom. So to start off, we're going to make a new file in our Photoshop setting. What I would like to show you guys is that I do have the tutorial and Photoshop open side by side. Makes following the instructions a lot easier. So we're going to go to File, New. For this sample, we're going to use 8.5 by 11 inches, 300 pixels per square inch, RGB color mode, and hit create. Now the files should be from the zip file that you got off Google Classroom. It's 01 Architect to 06 Stack Book. You can hold Shift to select all of them, and then you actually can just click and drag them. Whoops. You can just take the 6 and then click and drag them directly into the Photoshop window and hit enter for each image to accept them into your document window. There we go. All right, step 1 is to arrange the pictures. So with the image that we have here, remember that you can zoom into the PDFs. Take note of how the images are layered and what size they are, and you can also look in the layers panel to see the order that each image is in. So I'm going to go over here now. I'm going to take a look. So the architectural technology file is right there, and then it's meant to be the blueprint, then the architect, then math, then teamwork, then the stack of books. Now the books are far too large, so we are going to hit Command T to bring them down to size. They were put kind of near the bottom here, a little more to the side, hit enter. Now these people here, teamwork, they are meant to go up higher, and we're going to hold shift while we pull out the corners to make them bigger. Drop them down a bit. Now math, Command T, we're going to bring this down to the bottom. And this one, because it's kind of an abstract image, I'm not going to hold shift. I am going to stretch it out to fit the entire bottom. And hit enter. And let's see now. Architectural technology, Command T, it's hiding under everything, but we should be able to drag it up so it's in view. And then let's drag the architect, Command T, down a bit so we can see her, and we're actually going to make her a bit smaller. And we're going to bring the math down quite a bit as well. So I'm just hitting Command T to be able to move the objects. I'm keeping them as smart objects. And that is just fine. All right, so that is step 1 complete. So we rearrange them, they're all good. The next step is to hide the backgrounds of the architect and the book layers. So we want to get rid of those background areas. So we're going to hide all the layers that we don't want to deal with right now. So we'll hide teamwork, math, blueprint, and technology. So let's bring the book stack fully into view, and we're going to use the magic wand to select the background of the books. We're going to inverse with Shift Command I, and now we're going to hit the layer mask. There we go, it got rid of the background. Use the move tool to move them over now. And now we're actually going to hide the book stack. We're going to zoom in closer to the architect. This time I'm going to use the quick selection tool to try to select the background. Remember that you can use the square brackets to adjust the brush size. And so take a look. I'm on the wrong layer right now. I'm on the mask of the book, so make sure that instead you hit Command D and select the actual layer that we're working on, which is the architect. So we're going to click and drag some more. It's alright if it grabs some stuff that it's not necessarily supposed to. We will fix that after. Zoom in closer. We want to get the negative space between her arm and the table. I'm using Alt right now just to bring back this area because we do want her arm. And now I'm releasing Alt to choose the negative space again. Okay. So now just to refine our selection a bit, it's good all along the table and along her arm. Pretty good around the face, but I am just going to use the lasso tool. I want to remove this part of the selection, so I'm going to hold Alt, trace over what I want, and wrap around. And I'm going to fix the area up here. So I'm going to hold Shift because I want to add this part to the selection, wrap around that mistake area there. And now I'm going to hold Alt just to correct the area of the glasses and around her nose. So that's not so bad. Over by her head needs quite a bit of work. It's taken too much, so we're going to hold Alt. And you can click and trace around. You guys are going to have mouses, so this is going to be much easier for you guys than for me with my trackpad right now. And just try to get the main area of her head so that it looks proper, otherwise it's going to look like her skull is a little bit cut off. And we don't want this kind of black bow or whatever this is, so we're going to hold Alt and trace around her neck and everything. Go around the edges and wrap around what we don't want. Oh my goodness, I should have held Shift when I did that, because right now we're selecting the background and this is going to count as the background. So now I'm doing it again, holding Shift and wrapping around. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to hit Shift Command I and put a layer mask on, and there we go. Now for some reason it doesn't grab the edges of the image, so now you can use a brush, change the size of the brush to whatever suits you, and with black selected in your foreground, just go ahead and paint over what we missed. Make sure that your opacity up in the options bar is set to 100 and paint over what might have been missed. Something that I like to do is around the edges, I like to make sure that my brush is very feathered, which it is, with the hardness set to 0. And with a bit of a smaller brush, I like to go around the edges, and it just softens those harsh lines, just to make the transition a bit smoother. And you can take your time doing this as much or as little as you want. Just kind of helps with the general unity of the composition. There we go. And I'll click and drag along here. All right, not too bad. So that was step number 2. Now let's turn everything else back on. So now we can see a lot more of the blueprint because we've gotten rid of the girl's background. Now, step 3 is to add layer masks and create smooth transitions between the other images. Now, what I want you to take note of right away is that in the PDF, there has been a bit of a change with the order of the layers, and this is going to be important. So at the top now, math should be at the very top. So we're going to click and drag math to the top, and then it's books, and then it's architect, then it's blueprint, then it's teamwork, and then architecture technology. Good. So now let's start off with maybe trying to get a good transition between the blueprint and the teamwork area. So let's make the blueprint a bit bigger. We can see that it's really not covering the space that we need. So hold Shift and let's make it larger. Let's bring it down a little bit as well so we can't see the edge. And that should be just fine. And you know what? Let's even make her larger as well. We can hit Command T and click and drag. Bring her down a little lower. That's good. Now with blueprint selected, we're going to add a layer mask and we're going to use our gradient to apply the mask. With your foreground set to black, make sure that in your options up here, you have it to go from black to transparent and that you're using a linear gradient. So let's pull from up top and drag down a little bit, maybe a little bit more. Good, get that smooth transition. Now we can apply a layer mask on teamwork and do the same, have it transition from the top to the object underneath. Oh, so I went the wrong direction. You can hit Command Z. So I should be clicking and dragging from the object right at the top of the image here down, and I want to release where I want the teamwork image to be solid. There we go. So that's a much smoother transition. Let's see what else we can add to. Math can also have a layer mask added to it. Right now it has a very harsh stop. So again, all of our settings are still the same, but let's click maybe just a little bit underneath the edge, click and drag down a bit. There we go, more of a smooth transition. And so there's a bit of a gap here in terms of imagery. So let's make her a little bit larger again. I'm talking about the architect. Hit Command T. Let's pull that out a bit more. And we can even lower the books a bit. There we go. All right, I think that everything that required a mask is good now. We can see that the transitions between the blueprint and the teamwork are very smooth. Same between teamwork and, pardon me, the maps and everything. There is a bit of a line here actually, so if you go to teamwork, you can use a brush and you can help to soften that even more. And you can lower the opacity of the brush as well and get as finicky as you want. Let's see, I'm just going to go around the edges here. There we go. Much better. All right. So that was step number 3. Now on to step number 4. So right now there's a lot of colors going on. It doesn't look overly unified. So we're going to use a little trick that I learned recently here. So the most dominant color is the blue coming from the blueprint layer. So we're going to select that layer in the layers panel and we're going to duplicate it by hitting Command J. Next, with the duplicate print being selected, we are going to head to the top of our main menu where it says filter. You're going to go to blur. You're going to go to average. What this does is that it averages out all colors from that layer. We're going to drag this layer to the top of our image. We're going to Command T and we are going to stretch this color across everything. Now this has a little gradient attached to it, so if you want on the mask, you can use a white brush to just make the color solid throughout. And now what we're going to do is use our blending modes up here in the layers panel to change it from normal to color. So now we have this tint over everything. It's really strong though, so we're going to drop the opacity down. Let's try maybe 40%. That's a lot more natural looking. Let's see what it had over here. It looks like 35% is what I used in the example. So let's actually make that change. Good. And now because this architect here is the focal point, with the layer mask selected, I'm going to use a black brush. So my foreground color is set to black. I'm going to lower the opacity of the brush to about 50-ish. And then I'm just going to click on her face a couple times just to let her colors show through a little bit more to make her more present and well emphasized. All right, and the final step is to add the text. So with the title, we always want it to be big and bold. We're going to use the text tool. And I'm going to use a font that I downloaded from dafont.com. Going to make the text big, let's say 100. Going to make the orientation center, and I'm just going to click kind of where her hand is. And I'm going to type the word architect. I'm going to highlight it. And at the top of your options bar, you should see the option to color. So I'm going to make it into a nice orange. There we go. You can use the move tool to drag it down a bit. I'm going to hit Command T and hold Shift and Alt to make it bigger. Now I'm going to add some special effects to it. So at the bottom here, I've become a really big fan of inner shadow lately. If you move the dialog box, you can see the effect it has. Kind of makes it look like a paper cutout. You can play around with the opacity of the shadow. Sometimes it can look too harsh. I think around 50 is just where I like it. Click OK. Visibility is pretty good. Now we're going to add the little subtext. So with your text tool, go ahead and choose a script font. Sign Painter is my personal favorite. I think you might also have to download that from dafont or find something similar. Oh, now you see my architect layer was still selected, so it switched the font of that word. So I'm going to hit Command Z, and then I'm going to choose my text tool, and then I'm going to click right where the math is underneath Architect. And now I will make my changes. So Sign Painter. Oh, it's not letting me change it. So maybe I'll start typing. So the first word is whatever. Literally the word whatever. So now let's make the change. And let's drop the font size down to 25. And the color should be black so it can stand out. All right, so whatever good things we build end up building us. All right, now that's quite small. I'm just going to click off so that I can edit it. I'm going to hit Command T, hold Shift and Alt, and I'll click and drag. Now, because the black text is on a black and white background, we're having trouble seeing it. So I'm going to go back to the math layer. I'm going to drop the opacity down quite a bit. Now what happens with that is that all of a sudden the architect's arm becomes visible. So I'm going to go back to the architect's mask, use a black brush to just get rid of, a soft brush mind you, just to get rid of some of that visible area. And then I'll need to do the same for the blueprint. There we go, ease all those transitions. Good, all right. So now with this text layer, because it's still a little tough to see, we're going to add an outer glow. There we go. Click OK. And just make sure that you have your quotation marks. And good. All right, there you go, guys. That's pretty much it. You can go ahead and look at any of the other layers, make any adjustments to the layer mask that you like. Pardon me. And just have fun experimenting, guys. This is a really nice, easy way to make a composite by using layer masks and throwing on a color average layer to help balance out the entire artwork. Okay, so have fun, guys. Well done.